Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone. How are you all doing? I hope you're doing well on this awesome Be Healed Tuesday night. Listen, we are moving through the month of November, and like last week, we had an awesome guest, Dr. Kermit Boyd, and he shared, and you got a chance to really tune in and hear all more about his journey, his transparency, his authenticity in relationships, manhood, and just what it's like from growing up in one side of the tracks to where he is now experiencing abundant life and having a good relationship with his wife. And his daughter. It's just beautiful. Like, I hope you all have enjoyed it. Well, this week it's no different. Talking to another amazing man who can explain and share in full detail what he had to learn, shed, identify, um, reset, and redefine himself in so long this journey. And I'm just honored that they're willing to come over to the Be Healed Web Show, hang out with little old me, and tell me and those that are you that are tuning in on tonight, so you can hear more about them. And so I'm grateful for that. So with that being said, let me tell you about my guest on tonight. He's a friend. He's a colleague. We work together over Mount San Jacinto College, but he's more than just his position here at Mount San Jacinto College. He is more than that. He's a producer. He's a when it comes down to videography, photography. He's an artist. The man is a true creative. Rony Armas is here, and tonight you saw the title already. Irony, right? It's how he's going to talk about the irony of life. He's going to talk about how he had to um, tap into himself and realize there's some areas in his life that he needed to shape and mend and make better. And that's what vulnerability is. There's such power in vulnerability when you're able to identify, hey, I don't have it all together, or maybe I learned that wrong. Let me do different. Let me change. My mom always said, when you know better, you do better. And these men and the men that you will hear from later on in this series, they know better, y'all. That means they're doing better. And I'm grateful for it. So let me bring him in, Mr. Rony Armas, LA native himself. Come on in, bruh. How you doing?
Thank you so much, Camille. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you, first of all, saying yes. Like, thank you.
Thank you. No, this is truly an honor. As you were doing the intro, I'm like, oh my God, kind of, you start to get the butterflies. I'm like, what did I get myself into, right? But then, it's okay to admit that out loud and say I'm a little nervous, but because that's the vulnerable part, right? Communicating, openness, honesty, truth, all that good stuff. So thank you for having me. This is an amazing platform that you've got,
Thank
and
you.
all the love to you to for bringing courage, truth, and inspiration to your peeps, to your audience. We need more of this, so thank you. Much
Thank
obliged.
you. I appreciate it. I really do. Like I always tell people, God called this out. I'm just trying to do what He's told me to do. And along the way, He has blessed me to meet some amazing folks. I mean, I have not had one guest that has not wowed me in some kind of way, and I'm just so grateful for that. Now, when I asked you about joining and being a part of this series where we are very specific, we're talking to men straight through and asking about the power of vulnerability and for them to share their truths, you came up with your title, and I'm gonna read it because I don't want to miss it because there's some pieces in here. Irony. And you said there's been some ironic moments in your life. Can you talk to us about those ironic moments that you've had in your life?
Oh my goodness, how long do we have? Um, the ironies of being first generation, in this country. I'm from El Salvador originally, right? The ironies of growing up in a culture that is very much machista, right? Male dominated in that sense. The ironies of expectation imposed expectations by society based on color, race, right? That I've had to deal with growing up. Um, the ironies of language, of um, often it's funny because I tend to use big old $10 words sometimes, and folks look at me sideways like, how do you know that? How can you speak like that, right? Um, the ironies of culture. I mean, there's so many. The ironies of love.
Yeah.
That one is a huge one in my life. The ironies of being deprived of some of that love at some points and depriving myself of it.
Mm.
So yeah, it seems quite a fitting, that the word irony has my name in it. I always tripped out on that. I thought,
Yeah.
if I ever did write a book, that would just be the title,
Yeah.
just with that dash in there, because there's just been so many experiences that I feel could just be shared. We're all walking the same path. We're all walking the same journey, just slightly different angles. But the common denominator is there. The common denominator of we want to be seen, heard, loved, appreciated, supported, and also the joys on the flip side of that of supporting another person, the joys that come from lifting another person, right? So there's so many ironies in just all these aspects of like how sometimes when we're missing something, but somehow we find enough of it to give it to somebody else to lift them up.
Ooh. That's all of that. That's good. That's good. That's good. Because when you mentioned about being deprived of love and then depriving yourself, that is something that really doesn't show itself to be, or let me say this, oftentimes for people to realize that or come to that conclusion, they've had to do some serious work, whether with aid of therapy or with just definitely talking to God and working through some stuff and really having that talk with the man in the mirror type deal, for you to realize that. So let's start off with first generation. Let's do a little bit more backstory on who Rony is. Let's just see where it takes us, and then I do want to see when you mention about how you had to dismantle this impenetrable armor that you stated that you wear at times. So how did that come about? So let's learn more about Rony.
Well, the background. So, like I said earlier, I'm from my family's from El Salvador, Central America. It's the smallest country in Central America, and it's also the country most filled with turmoil.
Really?
It was involved in a 20-year civil war. It was a proxy battle between Russia and the United States, right? And so just to give you a little background of like the kind of turmoil that existed in my motherland and the immigration that it caused, right? And so my mom left El Salvador pregnant with me, and actually came, she did come illegally, but full on pregnant, me in her belly, and crossed this border from El Salvador way down, like further down from Guatemala, and then Guatemala, all of Mexico, coming all the way up into the United States, into California, into LA. She's got stories where she was actually like stuffed in the trunk of a car with 6 other people, full on pregnant, to get away from El Salvador, to get away from that turmoil, and to bring me here. And she was the first one in the family to come out here, not speaking the language, right? And so talk about courage, right? Talk about like just craziness and courage combined together to bring somebody into a brand new land. And so then, and then here I am, right? Barely made it, barely born here in the United States. And because of, mom just barely getting here, I had like culturally a foot in my Salvadorian culture and a foot here in the US culture, right? And so there were a lot of things, that you when you grow up here. I grew up in LA, right? All the parts of LA, majority in the Valley, San Fernando Valley, North Hollywood, Van Nuys, that kind of area. And there's a lot of things that we take for granted in terms of what we think is normal. You go to school and whatnot, and then you think that how you grew up is normal. And then you see how other kids grow up and how they get grounded and they don't get beat senseless. It's like, oh, wait, what? Grounded. I want to be grounded.
Right. I was like, I thought ground is when I hit the ground.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, yeah, I would totally rather be grounded than, getting these crazy, getting knocked out every night. And so, but that was that cultural
Yeah.
thing, And so, I mean, that kind of segues into that great armor, right? I called it the Great Wall of China because I really had this kind of impenetrable thing that I learned early on in life, kind of to survive. It's something that happens automatically when you're a child, when you kind of do undertake a certain amount of verbal, emotional, mental, and physical abuse. Like, it's old school. When you grow up in the motherland, when you grow up, it's a very physical. There's some violence, and it's just how we were raised.
Yeah.
But then we by virtue of survival kind of undertake um, certain strategies, right, to be able to get through that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize until way later, but yeah, apparently I had put up a shield at 4 years old, and I didn't realize it until, like you said earlier, very, very long, deep talks in the mirror, right? Looking at who's that person in the mirror, talking to God, a lot of prayer, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of all sorts of stuff where you're forced to self-reflect, you're forced to go down that rabbit hole head first and try to understand, where did this all come from, right? Why 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 this wall? And the wall, and the only reason for that self-reflection of the wall was because I started seeing the casualties
Ooh.
that I was leaving behind because of my wall.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. That was the issue. I don't think it would have happened if I had not, seen at one point finally the kind of pain that my wall was inflicting on others. Not intentionally per se, but it's just, when people want to love you and they keep running into that wall, at some
Yeah.
point they're going to kind of give up, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's almost to the point of why try, right?
Mm.
You know, when people do, you called it the Great Wall of China. And so I immediately thought, my best friend, her and her husband, many, many moons ago, they, trailed the Great Wall of China. If it was their first time over in the country, they wanted to do everything. But I remember her saying how beautiful it was, but also how tiresome,
Mhm.
strenuous. Like, you can't just go and say, "Oh, I'm gonna walk the wall today." It's not just something people do.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, like, that's a beautiful wonder of the world.
Mhm.
We are, we shouldn't be that complex, right? We shouldn't be that daunting and challenging. It shouldn't be like that. I think we have to find a healthy balance of being protected as well as being able to be received, or a place of love and refuge for someone else. Mainly for ourselves, for sure. But when we have that wall up, that doesn't do anyone any justice, because nothing can get in, but most importantly, nothing can get out.
Yeah.
Like when you mentioned about seeing the devastation, you might have realized, like, I might not be such a help as I thought I was. Like, me telling
It,
her it's over, it's not really working.
it's crazy because, of course, in the Latino culture, right?
Mm,
There is a lot placed on pride, right? There's
mm,
a lot placed on pride, and I was fueled by pride, and the only
mm,
emotion that I was content or felt safe to express was anger. That was it. That's the only emotion you'd ever see out of me when I was younger. And so pride and anger, uh, pride, one of the seven deadly sins, right?
mhm.
And so, and I was practicing that one like on the daily. And it does give you a certain amount of strength that you think is going to carry you through. What you come to realize later, though, is what you think is that pride that's carrying you through, or that respect that people are giving you, is really fear.
Mm.
It's fear. There's a certain amount of fear when you walk in a room and you're carrying so much of that energy.
Mhm.
Um, and when you're young and dumb, you think, hey, that's rocking, right? You think that's cool. Like, yeah, I walk in the room, fear me, get out the way, you know. But then later on, you realize, yeah, no, no, that's not okay because you're hurting people.
Yeah.
You're inadvertently hurting people, and then again depriving yourself. And that was a lesson for me. I'll tell you real quick, fast, that what happened was, I was in my early 30s, and I was in a relationship, and um, the person I was in a relationship with, like, she had the patience of a saint.
Mhm.
Truly, she emanated nothing but love, and because I had this great wall, um, you know, finally, she was done. And it wasn't until she had to leave for her own survival, right,
Mhm.
that I had to figure out what did I just do, what happened, and went down the rabbit hole. And it's been, I can tell you, it's been a decades long journey, and it's not over.
Right.
It's absolutely not over.
Yeah. That healing process it's not a quick process.
No.
Right? And sometimes we think things are healed, and it might be a layer of healing. You know how like they used to tell us growing up not to pick our scabs, right? Like don't leave it alone, like let it. But it's itching, or this tightness, or there's some uncomfortability,
Hmm.
and so sometimes we'll start picking at it and we'll open up the wound all over again.
Yep.
How have you been making sure that you don't open up old wounds, or how do you keep yourself from tampering with some of the things that are trying to heal in your life?
That is such a good question because there are triggers all over this planet. um, Expectation is the source of all suffering. Buddha
Mhm.
said that, right? And I'm constantly trying to integrate that philosophically into my life. It's not easy, right? Because what's going deeper than that, what is the source of expectation? It's ego.
Mm, okay.
It's ego. We're trying to, at some point, satisfy some aspect of ego when we have expectations. And keeping that in check is very, very difficult. Because when you have a life that's been rooted in pride, right, it's
Mhm.
like always there. Um, it gets triggered. It absolutely does. It doesn't ever really go away per se, right? But it's the awareness of it, I guess, right? The awareness of it,
Mm,
the seeing the signs, being able to understand. Um, oh, I know what this is. I'm feeling something, and I know what this is. You have so much experience with it,
yeah.
and then trying to reframe it because I'm in a space now where I'm trying to give as much love as humanly possible
Mhm.
without expectation. Like, even if I'm interested in somebody,
Mhm.
say that if I can just put a smile on their face,
Right.
I'm good. I don't need a reciprocation. I don't need you to necessarily like me back,
Right.
right? Um, I feel like it's a blessing if I can give you a moment where you smile, if I can give you a moment where you feel special, where you feel loved, where you feel acknowledged, then I did my job.
Gotcha.
I did. I took part in an aspect that is so difficult and to consciously get to. And the whole time, like, of course, it'd be nice to be, um, of course, it'd be nice to be liked back, right? Of course, it'd be nice to have some of those things reciprocated. But if that comes with expectation and then it doesn't happen, now you're hurt, right?
Right.
Now you're sad, or now you're angry, or you go down to this space of like self-loathing, like what's wrong with me? Why not, right? And it just leads to all these, negative questions about yourself.
Mhm.
And I've done that for way too long in my life already. Anyways, like I can't be doing that anymore. I'm done with that.
Yeah.
And so when you have an opportunity to give a little bit of something that puts a smile and makes somebody like glow,
Mhm.
and in the background there might be like a hint of fireworks or a shooting star or something that happens that just kind of aligns with the
Right.
moment, and then you can actually walk away and say, this wasn't about me, this was about a moment,
Mm.
a
Come on.
God-given moment, right?
Yeah.
And you walk away happy with that.
Yeah. Those God-given moments. Oh boy, let me tell you. Like That's really an evolved way of understanding life. When you mention about expectations, when we put when we put such expectations on individuals who have not entered into that same place as we are, we do set ourselves up for failure. Absolutely. Absolutely. But as well as understanding that we are designed, we're blessed to be a blessing, right? Um, and sometimes it's going to be in those moments, but it should not be with, I did this so you can love me back, or I did this so you can see my value. I don't have to sell. I don't
Yeah.
need to sell my validity to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
It's tough though. I'm gonna be honest. Let me set this record straight though. I'm human. You know, like it's one thing to be able to like drop some cool philosophy and concepts and whatnot, another one to like live it. And so it's crazy difficult. And there are triggers, and of course there are moments where you come home and you're just like, ah, you know, and
Mhm.
you groan and you growl and you're like, and you sit there and you have to have that conversation with yourself. And so it's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. But we're human, and there's a gamut, right? There's a
Mhm.
gamut, and we fall across this entire spectrum. And sometimes we're here, and sometimes we're here.
Yeah. The I think the focus for me in my life right now is finding the middle.
Yeah.
Finding the middle on a lot of that. Like, I don't have to be over the top all the time. Go figure. So,
And-
and I don't have to be under either.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
It's
I
good.
mean, it's that great balancing act. I came up with something a long time ago, and it was after that situation. Um, and this might be the first time I say it like on something public where uh, but it was something to the effect of, it's been like 10 years since I said this, but life is about fate dancing with free will. The
Mm.
problem is you never know who's taking the lead.
Woo! Wait, say that again.
Fate dancing with free will. The thing is, you just never know who's going to take the lead.
That's good.
And that's the hard part, right?
Yes.
That's the hard part.
Yes. Woof. I because I can see that in so many ways, right? Because God designed us. He has a plan for us, but he allows us the autonomy of free will. We
Hmm.
still make choices.
Hmm.
We still, and granted, he's factored in everything. He
Hmm.
knows the choices we don't, right? So we're staying tuned to the next episode of our life daily, right? Moment by moment.
Hmm.
But there's choices that we make that take us on a trajectory in our life. That's
Infinite possibilities. Infinite possibilities exist until you make a choice or until you become aware of it, and then it locks in into that moment.
yeah.
Um, and so that's a little quantum physics in there for you, but it's this idea of probability, and endless possibilities. Um, yeah, it's all built in. Yeah, and I guess that's the joy of it. Once it's art and it's science,
Mhm.
it's faith, and it's choice. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're the oldest child or the only child?
The oldest, it's just myself and my sister, and
Okay.
she's 15 years younger than I am.
Oh, okay. So she baby sister for real, for real.
Well, yeah, I raised her. My mom was working like 3 jobs at the time, so she's more like my daughter than my sister. Yeah,
That's good. That's
it's
good.
my
And
pride and joy. My pride and joy.
oh, well, shout out to your sister. Hope she's tuning in tonight with us. But so you're family man, family oriented. You've taken some bumps and bruises along the way in your journey, and you come to this place of realization that you've had to make some conscious changes on how you show up, how you enter the room. What was that like as an artist? Like when you're going through this shift, did your artistic eye shift as well,
Oh,
or were you still
absolutely.
seeing?
Absolutely. So I'm a photographer first and foremost. That's my main medium, and I've been doing photography for over 20 years. I started in my 20s, early 20s, And I loved photographing the world. I had more of a documentary style of photography. I just wanted to document the world. For me, it was a little bit of a rebellious act to say, time goes on, but you know what? I'm going to capture this moment in time
Mm.
against everything that time is trying to say. I'm going to grab this and hold on to it, right? And there was something about that that I really loved. So I was out there trying to capture the world, and then once I started going down this particular path, that was imposed, right? Because this was not a choice.
Mhm.
It was definitely foisted. Um, I started doing a lot of self portraits
Okay.
that because I wasn't able to connect with folks for a minute because
Mhm.
what's interesting when you're as a photographer, as a painter, it's very clear. As an illustrator, as a musician, right? As a composer, as a dancer, you
Mhm.
can see clearly the injection of the artist in the piece.
Yeah.
In photography, it's a little bit more subtle, right? Because you're capturing something in that moment that is very almost literal sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Um, but in those days, I was I couldn't find myself able to connect with anybody because I was concerned with like how I don't even know how to connect with that person enough to show them without it being imposed by me, if that
Ah,
makes sense.
okay. Yeah. Wanting them to be in their natural element, their state of what they being free, them being naturally free, for you to capture those moments, those authentic moments, and sometimes even if they might be a little staged, still authentic because that's what we're trying to
Sure.
shoot for.
Yeah.
But you were just feeling that emptiness, that void.
And it's interesting because that'll come out sometimes, right? Like if the angle of the light, I might make the shot super dramatic when
Mm,
that wasn't the person's personality, but it was mine coming
ah,
through, you know?
that's
And
it.
so I started doing a bunch of self portraits that were very stark, very, they were dark. They were exploratory, right? It was what is going on? Who am I? Some very vulnerable, you
Mm,
know? And that was the first time. And so I'll tell you real quick, I got into photography because I hated being in pictures. As a
interesting.
kid, as a kid, whenever there was time for family picture, I ran to grab the camera so I wouldn't be in the picture. So I was the one taking the photos. And so it was something that stayed with me all the way through. And so it was a great way to not be in it is to be the guy taking it. And that's what got me into photography.
Mm,
And so this whole thing of coming back around and do self portraits was completely um, awkward, scary, strange. Because again, talking about vulnerability, now I'm having to really show who I am, express myself, take a picture of me, see my face, see my body, see this. What is this? Who is this?
mm,
You know, growing up, I used to avoid mirrors. Growing up, I was the ugly duckling. Growing up, you have no idea how many times I was laughed at or rejected, you
mm,
know, by girls. And I was like, I don't want to see that. I don't, I don't want to know what that looks like. And then all
mm.
of a sudden, it turned the camera on yourself.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's pretty
But
scary.
freeing at the same time, I'm sure.
Not initially, but it was like a learning experience. It was like research. It was like, you know, what is going on here? Who is that? Can I get over this? What is it that people see that I don't see?
Mm,
And so the camera can be a very powerful tool in that as well, discovering who you are. And then subsequently, you know, more artistic shoots that I've done since then, there's a better balance of the subject and who they are and their story and an aspect of who I am as the image capturer or the image creator.
yeah. So yeah, I'm going to get back to this, but I want to kind of open it up as it relates to some of the awesome individuals you have shot, and the different galleries that you have. So let's just use, the incomparable Miss Sheila E. Right? When you first went on set to shoot her, what was going through your mind?
So I'm really good friends with her family, and so it had been a few years, you know, since that we had been friends already that we did the shoot. So we were already comfortable. We knew each other, you know. I did the photography for her album called The Icon, And so
Mhm.
he listened to that album. And so we did that shoot. It was pretty impromptu, actually. She called me up and was like, "Hey, are you available?" I was like, "Of course, for you, yeah, when, of course." And so we did the shoot. It was fun. It was very relaxed. Um, but we met through her father, actually, Mr. Pete Escovedo, incomparable as well, Latin jazz legend, uh,
Mhm.
Mr. Pete Escovedo. And so they're from the Bay Area originally,
Okay.
and they had come down to LA back in 2000, 2001. And through some mutual friends at the time, was introduced to them because Pops, as we call him,
Mhm.
those that know him well, we call him. Actually, everybody calls him Pops. That's Pops. Um, he's also a prolific artist,
Mm.
amazing painter, and that's along with music, like his two loves. And so we did his first art show in LA, and so that's how I met the family, and that's how we subsequently became like the greatest of friends, and met Sheila, and how we just all became super tight. And it's now been 21 years that we've been really close friends, and led to one of the portraits that I have of Pete, and to Sheila's album photography for her album Icon.
So how have with everything that's been going on, even as you mentioned previously, you going through and having to do the self portraits, have you been able to see the shifts in how you shoot others since you've had this great awakening in yourself? Do you feel that if Sheila E called you right now and say, "Hey, we want to do a remaster of or a remake of the Icon," is there a different perspective, different look that you feel like you're bringing to her or even any client because you've had this awakening?
It's interesting. So first and foremost, you want to realize the client's vision.
Hmm.
So we got a team, hair, makeup, stylist, the whole 9 yards. So first, that's first and foremost. That's what they're paying for. But then I always try to say, okay, we got your stuff done. Give me a little time. Give me
Hmm.
a little time to let me do my thing.
Hmm.
And so it's always at the end of the shoot where I will kind of let all the rules go out the window. And I usually like to work with one light. I like dramatic lighting,
Hmm.
and then that's where that comes out. That's where that comes out. It's usually at the very end of the shoot, to experiment, to play, to connect with the client, the model, and that's where I, as the photographer, the model, will kind of like has the team, the crew to kind of step aside, and then it's just a one-on-one situation. It's a visual conversation that we start to have,
Yeah.
and create an image there towards the end that is more about what has our relationship been in this moment, you know, rather than fulfilling, an art director's, uh, storyboard.
Right, right. Trying to not trying to shoot to the letter, but shoot to
Yeah,
the reality of what it is. That's good.
yeah.
That's so. And I know we're going to be wrapping up here shortly, but what is some advice that you give the younger generation? I know you mentioned about growing up in the Latin culture. Of course, there's always that the machismo type mentality. How do you share that with the younger generation coming behind you? What do you give them for advice?
It's the advice I give everybody. So we
Okay,
worked together at Mount San Jacinto College.
yes, we do.
You
People.
you you heard me in many in many meetings. I sit on many boards and whatnot, and I try to bring the same message. Um, and it's the title of your show, really, the power of vulnerability.
Hmm.
There is so much fear associated with opening up, and
Hmm.
of course there is. Of course there is. It's scary to express your true self. It's scary to say things like the L word, right? It's scary to um, want to be loved and say that out loud. All that is, it's terrifying. Um, but the power, the strength that comes from it, when you finally find the courage to say it out loud and say
Hmm.
it out loud often, boldly and often, every day, randomly, um, it's a whole new fuel
Yeah.
that is really endless. Actually, it's an endless fuel that can really keep you going. And so I try to tell folks really take that leap, but without expectation, right? Say the L word, say I love you, say I admire you, say those things, right? But without expectation. Don't need it back, don't want it back. Just say it because you want to lift somebody else up, right? Because the power of vulnerability really isn't about opening yourself up. It's not about ripping your chest open and saying, "Hey, look at my heart." It's about ripping your chest open and saying, "Here's my heart," right?
Mm.
And there's so much power in that. And there's so much beauty in that. And there's so much love in that. It's service, right? Being vulnerable is really like this really high level of service.
Yeah.
When you can do that and try to exemplify that and live that life, there is, and it comes with art. And everyone's an artist to some degree. Everybody. Some people write poetry. They write music. They dance. They draw. They paint. They do photography. Whatever it is, everyone is an artist. And it's so like tapping in a little bit more into that artistic side of who you are. We're so left brain dominant, right? That everything's got to be structured. Everything's got to be on a 8.5 by 11, college ruled notebook, and it's got to fit nicely and neatly and all that. But that's not life,
Yes.
And we're walking around thinking that if it's not that, something's wrong. But I'm gonna tell you, when you color outside the lines, when you scribble, when you turn that college ruled notebook paper sideways and write across the lines instead of in between the lines, there's a brand new you that you're going to be introduced to that is beautiful and brave, and so that's my advice is just express as much as humanly possible without expectation. Give it away for free. Be an artist in life, and when fear pops up, breathe through it. Right? Because it's going to pop up. It always pops up.
Right.
It's always scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you that if it's scary and you do it anyway.
Yeah.
The fact that it's scary tells you that you're doing the right thing. Stepping out of that comfort zone, right? Getting out of that comfort zone, and do it anyway, even if it's terrifying. Do it anyway. I was just telling a story recently about, because I used to be a scuba diver.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the deepest I've gone is 110 feet underwater here out in the Pacific. And there's always an element of fear. You go down there, and absolutely everything down there can kill you if it wanted to. Everything, from something this big to, of course, a shark, right? Anything down there can take you out in a heartbeat. But it doesn't, right? It could, but it doesn't. And there's like a powerful lesson in that, in just this connection, this balance, and the humility that can come when you take that risk, right? Jump off the boat, go down there and see this brand new world that we've never been exposed to. And it's the same thing internally. Jump off the boat and explore that side of yourself that you've never really had the guts to kind of check out, because maybe you weren't supported in that. That's cool. But once you start to do it, you'll find the support. The support will find you.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the support. Just do it anyway. Start writing. Start doing poetry. Start painting. Start drawing. Start the art of oratory. Beautiful thing that you're great at, Camille.
Oh, thanks.
And to share those things, right? Be brave and bold and be vulnerable and tell your truth. Just tell your truth, because this time is fleeting. It is absolutely fleeting. I've been on death's doorstep way too many times. And that was a big learning lesson too. And so it's like, I ain't got time to hold on to stuff. And if something happens tonight, at least for a moment, I told the truth, and folks can know that how I felt about them, right? Because it's all fleeting, and God gave us this amazing ability to express, to create, to share, to speak, and to use words in such a beautiful way, in such a poetic way, that why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we sing to each other and tell each other how much we love each other?
That's good. I love it. Thank you. I just love this series. I One of the reasons why I'm enjoying everything you're saying, because when you mentioned about the scuba diving, I was like, hashtag tonight, dive in, right? Don't be afraid to dive in. Um, and when you mentioned about when it's scary, do it, right? It's an indication that you're moving in a place that you need to go, and the fear that's coming over you is that don't do that, don't, and we're talking about within reason. Let's make sure
Sure, sure.
everybody right within they're like, oh, they said for me to do cocaine. No, we did not say that. Never did we say that. But that fear of launching the business, or the fear of making that connection with that person that you feel that you have that connection with, or expressing yourself or applying for that job because you feel that you don't have that qualification that someone else is. Just do it, do it, do it. I call it shoot your shot. I've had some great successes with shooting my shot, because I think it's important that if you feel impressed to do something, don't deprive the world, the occasion, the season of your presence being there. Uh, so thank you for that. And then another nugget, you dropped so many nuggets along, and I hope everyone's picking up these jewels, because when you're helping us to understand that, listen, because life is fleeting, the Apostle James said, life is but a vapor. It's seen today and gone the next, right? Understanding that, at least in this moment, I showed up, I was my authentic self, I shared the truth, and now I can continue. That is something that I feel that the generations after us, I don't know if they know how to stand in that place, because it's a sacred space, right? When you're authentic, when you're real, when you're saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, I want to be the better version of me. I don't know if the younger generation knows how to really get there. I don't know.
It's crazy. It's a little scary actually, because what what I see happening is the younger generation is being told who they are,
Yeah.
right? Social media has done such a horrible, horrible disservice to, I think, the mental, emotional evolution that we're capable of. Because now there's this visual, perception, this ideal, this contrived ideal that
Mhm.
is more pervasive, more ubiquitous than television ever was,
Mhm.
and it's now poisoning, our human condition actually. And so it is a little scary, and I think it's, you know we've got to disconnect from the technology. We've got to come back to pen and paper, right? We
Yeah.
got to come back to barefoot on the beach. We got to
Mhm.
come back to, hikes in the hills, and picnics in the forest. Like whatever it is that we got to do to get back to some kind of a root, to remember, just to kind of remember and feel. It's so crazy, and I myself am, fall victim to this every single day. You got your phone. I'm
Mhm.
working for. I've got 3 monitors in front of me all day long as part of my job. You come home, there's a TV. In your cars, we got monitors, big old monitors that have GPS. It's like we're just surrounded by all these monitors,
Mhm.
and not necessarily always surrounded by faces.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that it's a little scary. And I think, if there's another message for sure, please disconnect. Please, take a walk, meet your neighbor, get out and find that courage to be a little vulnerable, and to laugh when you want to laugh, cry when you want to cry, And here's the other part: it's okay to be angry, right? Anger is a part of it too. Anger, sadness, those are all part of the human experience. It's all beautiful, right?
Mhm.
And all plays a part. Feel it, express it, and then let it go, right? Accept it, embrace it, and then let it go.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is why we have to do sessions like this. This is why we have to stop the press, and ask the questions. One of the things that I thank God for the personality that He has blessed me with, that I don't have a problem talking to anybody, whether they are the creme de la creme celebrity or they're the person who doesn't even know that they're a celebrity in someone else's life, right? I want to talk to everybody. And when I asked you, I do remember when I first started the show, I only asked people that I knew, because there's like you think there's a safety
Mm-hmm.
in going with the people you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then you start realizing, one, you know a lot of people, but do you really know them?
Mm-hmm.
You know of them, but do you really know them?
Mm-hmm.
And then in our conversation, I was just like, I'm just gonna see if he wants to do power vulnerability. Like, I want to ask different faces, different people that, and it's not, we're not bound to a certain look or demographic. I want to hear from a wide spectrum of men, because I feel like you guys have such a voice that isn't always heard because of such societal pressures and preconceived notions, that we oftentimes we'll build a wall in for you all. You might your
Yeah.
wall might be down, but we're building it for you. Be like, oh no, 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 we don't ask him, don't do that. No, no, no.
Do that.
And here I am like, hey.
Well, I'll tell you, had it been the me of like 10 years ago, I probably would have been like, no, I'm good, I'm good.
Yeah.
And there was a little hesitation, of course, because it's always a little weird to kind of be on camera. I'm used to being behind the camera, like I said, right? But but the new philosophy was like, just do it, just do it. Doesn't matter if you stutter, if you're nervous, whatever the case may be, just do it anyway. If something comes out, um, if something does come out, great. If not, cool, whatever. Just do it. Just do it. Because this moment is going to pass too. This episode is going to pass too, and you're going to have other episodes,
That's
and
right.
everything moves on. And so this isn't a permanent moment to be scared of, because it's going to come and it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so this will be a moment that somebody sees this, hears it, and then tomorrow they're going to go back to their life. And so it's like, it had an impact or not, it's all good. It doesn't matter. We keep moving. We keep moving.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Um, oh man, I so agree with that, because so many times I have wanted to stop what I was doing, take off running, stop doing the show, stop, you name it, because of one blip or one. And the older I get, the more days that I live, the more sunrises and sunsets, I'm realizing I'm still living to fight another day. Like, I'm still okay. Life is life goes on.
Yeah,
So
it really does. It really does. And it's like a double-edged sword though, right? Like it goes on to, and at some point there'll be healing, and also at the same time it's fleeting. Healing and fleeting simultaneously.
yeah.
Uh, so take advantage of that dichotomy, that
Mhm.
irony, and milk it, enjoy it, be brave, be bold, and it's okay to spill your guts, because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, more people are actually looking for examples of how to do that. But we
Yes.
don't have enough of that right now. We don't have enough people saying it's okay to express what you're feeling.
Well,
And so
thank you.
we have this mental health issue, right?
It is. And I know mental health awareness, I know they have different months. I believe even in October was another mental health awareness month. And I know they have weeks and
Mm.
different things along all through the calendar year. I mean, there's literally a month, a day, a week, a celebration for everything, right? Or acknowledgement for everything. But I very much, concerned about our mental well-being, and I hope that everyone who's tuned in tonight has got a chance to hear something that they didn't hear before, learn more about you, and kind of look at their own life and examine, have I been an impenetrable wall set up around me? Like, is my armor, like, what's going on, and what caused this? What made me think that this was okay? And let me just examine myself. One of my favorite scriptures is, we do it every first Sunday through out of the First Corinthians chapter 11, but as it relates to taking sacrament and Holy Communion. But I love the part where it says, "Let a man examine himself." If we don't get to a place where we look ourselves in the mirror, figuratively or realistically, and see, like, hey, where am I measuring up? God, what am I doing? We are missing out. And there's such revelation. I hope you all have been blessed by listening to Rony, because Rony has shared, he went through, he realized the wreckage and the damage he was causing, and knew he could not continue in that way. So the two things that he suffered with greatly, pride and anger, he had to set those things aside so he can move and live the life of freedom, a life of joy, a life of peace. And even though there's things that anger and trigger us and try to throw us back to the deep side, right? The deep end, he still knows there's power in expressing his truth and knowing of those divine encounters, those moments that God has placed in him for him to serve wholly and completely in, and not partially. So if you are not showing up authentically as yourself, we recommend talk to yourself, talk to God, look this thing over and see what you can do different. And make sure you don't deprive this world of the greatness that's within you, because that's what God has blessed us with. Rony, I appreciate you, bro.
Oh,
And you already know that I want you to shoot and videography for me. You already know. Like, we have
all day
conversations.
long, all day long, whatever you want, you got it.
I appreciate you so much. Hang back with me for a moment. I'm going to just throw us out. You all have a great night. Be blessed. May the blessings of the Lord be upon you. May He continue to let His face shine upon you and give you strength. May He be with you in your going out and your coming in from this day forward, even forevermore. And we're praying with and for each and every one of you. Have a great night. Rony, hang out with me for a second, and we'll see you next week for another phenomenal episode of The Power of Vulnerability through the Be Healed Web Show. See ya.